right, I see that it's 5:30. I'd like to welcome everyone and call to order tonight's regular Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, September 15th. Here in the boardroom, if we could start with a roll call, please, Tammy.
Brett Waller.
Here.
Linda Yingling.
Here.
Nels Dashbeck.
Here.
Chad Krieger.
Here.
Ron Liberty.
Here.
Kendra Osmus.
Here.
John Smith.
Here.
Maria Volpe.
Here.
Kevin Blake.
Here. You would please stand and face the flag as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Merrill Area Public Schools Board of Education meeting. MAPS respects the role our elected board members serve and the function of our board meetings. Board members and administrators are committed to working collaboratively to provide our students a safe learning environment and the highest levels of achievement. This meeting is a formal event and professional conduct is the expectation for all in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sample. We have time reserved next for public comment. I did not have any sheets turned in. Tammy, did you? All right, seeing none, we'll move right into board recognition. At this time, we do have some new staff members that are with us that, if you would, please stand, come forward, as I'm sure Tammy or Dr. Sample have coached, and say your name, your building, your grade, and what course you teach.
I'm Katie Hebel. I'm at Washington, and I'm a third grade teacher.
And I'm Margot Sweetland. I'm teaching K, second grade.
I'm Sherry Larson. I'm at Washington teaching fourth grade.
Alyssa Zimmerman, Washington Elementary, third grade. Alexis Bedford, I'm at Washington. I'm the social worker at the school. Miranda Steinberg, the school counselor at Cambridge.
Excellent. Welcome to everyone.
I'm just gonna quick get a picture.
No, you're okay.
Thank you.
Teaching
I'm going to say we're part of the Stutzman family.
Next recognition we have this evening is for Sue Smallin. Sue has been a valuable member of the Special Education Department as Administrative Assistant to the Director. In the 5 years that she's been in this role, she has refined processes and been a positive conduit between all department members. She's always punctual in her communication with members, putting their needs at the forefront and easing department concerns. Best of luck going forward from the board, from the entire Special Education Department on your upcoming retirement. It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Would you like the opportunity to speak, or should I just let you go sit down?
I want to thank everybody. This has been a great experience. I came here 5 years ago, actually in a couple days, September 19th, when I started to go to high school for a little bit. But everything's been good, and I have the greatest boss, Karen. I love her. She's been awesome, and everybody here has been so supportive. And every one of you, and just I look at each one of you as someone who's made a difference and still making a difference and keeps doing it. And I'm going to enjoy my retirement.
Also, to be recognized, the Wisconsin School Board Appreciation Week is October 3rd through the 9th. Merrill Area Public School District would like to recognize that October 3rd through the 9th is Wisconsin School Board Appreciation Week. This year's theme is Strong Boards, Strong Schools, strong communities. We greatly appreciate your service. Thank you.
Next on our agenda this evening, we get to hear from our Student Board of Education representatives. So if we could have Amelia Scovera and Isaiah Rell to the microphone. And I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. The start of the school year has been excellent so far. Everything has had a very smooth transition, whether that be with the new schedule, where we have 2 different flex periods, or how students have adapted from COVID last year to kind of back, all the way in person. It's been really smooth and it's been great. This year, the high school hosted a freshman boot camp to help the new students transition from middle school to high school successfully. The boot camp was this past Friday and started off in a large group meeting before splitting off into 3 core sections that are important parts of having a great high school experience. The first section was academics and talked about how grades are determined, why homework matters, how to use Google Classroom, study strategies, to always check your email, just important academic things that you need to know. Second, they went to a pupil service section and learned about building resilience, where to go for help, and why building relationships with peers and staff is so important. Last, they went to the student life section, and discussed why getting involved and becoming a part of the high school is so important. Everyone responded well to this learning opportunity, and the high school plans to have another reboot to check in at the end of the quarter. Homecoming is also coming up, which is super exciting. Tuesday, September 28th starts off the dress-up week and festivities. So kids will be dressing up and participating in different competitions to earn their class points and hopefully win the whole homecoming at the end of the year, or not at the end of the year, at the end of the week. The first school event is Powder Puff, which is the women's football, which starts at 7 on Wednesday, September 29th. Then it's normal dress-up days until Friday, where there will be a school-wide assembly with class competitions, and then Friday night is the bonfire, and the next morning, on Saturday after the 2nd, is a homecoming parade, where classes will show off their floats that they built and decorated based off their decade. After the parade is the football game against the Lakeland Thunderbirds, and finally, to end the homecoming week, is a dance on Saturday night. Everyone is super excited for homecoming.
One of the biggest issues for freshmen coming to the high school and upperclassmen as well is that they don't know how to get involved in activities and clubs, or they don't know the opportunities that are available to them. As a solution to this problem, Merrill High School held an activities fair this year as a way to show off all of the clubs that are available at the school. Each club set up a table in the field house so that students could learn more about the different clubs and also sign up for them. Some of the clubs also had student representatives who are part of the club sit at the table and answer questions regarding the club. The activities fair was a great opportunity for the students to become more involved in all of the opportunities that the high school has to offer. Link Crew was a huge success again this year. Link Crew is a club whose main focus is to help make the transition to the high school easier for freshmen. The members of the club took part in multiple training days to get ready for the Link Crew Day, which is on the first day of school and is a day that is dedicated to helping freshmen learn the things that they need to know for high school, such as how to get around, how to set goals, and how to succeed in the classroom. Link Crew Day this year was a big success and put freshmen on a path to succeed in high school.
All right, thank you guys. Anyone have any questions for Amelia or Isaiah? Any follow-up on any clubs or activities you two participate in?
I'm involved in a lot. I just came from tennis, so I'm sorry if I don't look as nice as usual, but I'm involved in tennis, Link Crew, which was really fun. We went to School Forest this year, which was, it was just the Link Crew leaders. So we went to School Forest, and it was kind of more of a bonding opportunity for us to really get to know each other and be comfortable, which I really loved. I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, I'm in Junior Optimist, which is a club that's dedicated to volunteering, and I'm also in FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and then I'm in Link Crew as well, and for sports side in track.
Wonderful. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys. Well done, guys. Thank you.
Next on our agenda this evening, we'll turn it over to Dr. Sample for administrative reports. While we do get these reports in advance, and we do ask some questions in advance, feel free to ask any questions you have this evening for clarification or to be on the record. This time I'll turn it over to Dr. Sample.
You can see that each one of the central office administrators has filed a report on the agenda, and so if there's any questions at all, everybody is present here this evening. Are there any questions about any of the central office administrator reports? With that, we do have our Board of Education learning opportunity. It comes to us from Special Education Pupil Services, school counselor department presentation. So we can go ahead and do that at this time, if the school counselors are ready. Certainly. Do you guys like?
Oh, there we go. I got it.
Trina, do you have the presentation? Can I share with you on the computer or not?
I have it.
Yeah.
Do you have the mirror on? Because they're set up for mirror operating.
Oh.
If you share with me, I'll just pull it up and have it on the computer.
Sure.
All right, good evening. I am sitting here very proud to give an informative update to the board. The last time I sat on this side of the table doing this was October of 2011. So besides me, I know all the faces are new on this side of the table, and I'm looking at other faces on the other side of the table, and I know some roles have changed and we have new faces. So we were very glad to be able to come here and talk a little bit about our department today. We did promise to be brief. We will go through our slide pretty quickly. We also have a handout for you to take, so. All right, so I do feel like it's important to introduce us so we have faces to the name. So my name is Trina Knesky. I am a school counselor at the middle school in Merrill. This is my 13th year as a school counselor in Merrill.
Christy Nowinski, I'm a school counselor at middle school counselor at Washington Elementary. It's my 7th year as a school counselor, and I did 12 years of teaching before school counselor.
My name's Laura Forrester. I'm also a school counselor at Fairwood Middle School. This is my 6th year as a school counselor with MAPS, and this is my 11th year as a school counselor in general.
I'm Alicia Rush. I am a high school counselor intern, and I just started this year.
My name's Casey Holt. I'm one of the high school counselors. This is my 6th year here. I'm Allie Libby. This is my 6th year as a counselor in the district and 8th year overall.
I'm Miranda Steinberg again. School counselor at Co-Curricular, and it's my 1st year.
So you can see up on the board, what is a school counselor? So we are going by school counselors, not guidance counselors. We are DPI licensed master's level educators that provide services to all students in different ways throughout their experience here in Merrill. You can see up here, there's kind of like 3 domains that we cover: academic support, personal social support, and then career support.
So how has the role of a school counselor changed? Even since I was in, it's changed pretty dramatically. So we were given the name guidance counselors because a lot of what we did was guide students to choose a career. We did things like write letters of recommendation, send out transcripts, and those types of things. So in the past decade, the role has changed pretty dramatically, and now school counselors are highly trained with a master's degree. In addition to guiding students to being college ready, we focus on post-graduation planning and administrative support. And we also embrace a comprehensive approach to optimize student outcomes in much more than just college planning. So now we have the 3 domains that we cover. So in addition to career, we also cover the personal, social, and the academic domains. So it's much more than just the focus on career. Some of the focus areas include emotional support, family intervention, social development, academic guidance, career planning. We are now part of a collaborative, a strong team. We no longer are in our offices by ourselves, only focusing on the career portion and once in a while checking in with kids. We cover all 3 of these domains, and so people know us. We're working with parents, students, and staff, and other stakeholders. So when focusing on career, we do a lot of things that are part of that piece. We have conversations with kids individually. There are Blue Jay plans that are written, post-secondary planning, and we are encouraging students to think of many different job options, like trade jobs, maybe possibly going into the military, and being college ready, but it isn't just a focus on college itself. There are guidance lessons that we teach at all the different levels. We discuss career choices during G-Talk conferences. So we even have personality tests that match them with things that they're good at, jobs that they'd be good at someday. We have conversations about that and what strengths they can use to go into a career someday, which is very helpful for students. We encourage the high school students to do work-based learning programs where they can actually work while going to school, which is a wonderful opportunity for them. And then as part of the ACP, or the academic career planning piece, there's a program we use called Zello, and that is really helpful. My daughter uses that, and she looks at careers she's interested in, and again, it matches her personality to jobs. There's different universities that will say that you can go to if you're looking for different careers, and what type of money you can make going into those careers and things like that. So that's another piece. So this is how much our role has changed considerably the last decade.
So going off of what Christy said, so ASCA is the American School Counselor Association, and that's kind of like our national comprehensive model that advocates for what school counselors do. And all of us, part of your master's degree program is to be trained in the ASCA model, and they teach us how to effectively manage and run a program. So there's 4 areas that every program is kind of supposed to be founded on, and we go back to that to make sure that we're meeting the standards that they need. So accountability, delivery, foundation, and management, the most important being the delivery of services, so really working with kids. ASCA encourages that we are spending 80% of our time in direct contact with kids. I think that we could all say that's an ideal, would be the 80, because a lot of times you can get kind of caught into the other stuff with paperwork and managing things, but we try to really advocate for spending as much time as we can in the delivery of services. So how we look at our programming to make sure that we are, just like teachers, we have standards that we have to meet. So the ASCA mindsets and behaviors is like teachers' competencies or standards that they have to meet, which a lot of people don't necessarily know that. So in those mindsets and behaviors are like developing self-advocacy skills or being able to manage my time well. And as a group in 2018, when we moved from, it used to be the Wisconsin Comprehensive School Counseling Model to now it's Wisconsin adopted the ASCA model, which we all really think is great because it's a national model, so it's based on research, and everyone across the country is doing it. We sat down as a department and looked at all of our different levels and what we are providing in services, and maybe some areas that we need to strengthen our programming in, and then we go back to that to make sure that we are hitting all of those areas, because it's easy to focus on certain things and then forget about other areas, so we try to go back and make sure in some area we are in some way we're addressing all the needs of kids when it comes to those 3 domains.
So I think at this point, we were gonna hand out they already have. Oh, they already have it, okay. So you guys can read that the M is middle school, H is high school, E is for elementary, that kind of goes through different areas where we're either leaders in these areas or we have our hands heavily involved. Nowadays, it's all hands on deck in our buildings. We are community members, we are parents, we are coaches, we are board members, and all sorts of things, so that other duties as assigned was a quick brainstorm of what else we do. That list could probably go on and on, of ways that we are involved in the lives of our learners. I was saying earlier today that I was here when J-Talks were born, so when they first started these individual planning conferences. And I think Mr. Smith had asked years ago when we first were gonna come and present to you, are J-Talks doing the job that we wanted them to do? Are they still as valuable as they were in their inception? And I think, as far as trying to make learning meaningful for these students, to answer that age-old question of, why do I have to learn algebra? How is that ever gonna help me? We are trying to give students as much information about themselves and their options so that that learning does become purposeful, at least in the long term, maybe not the short term. We had very great feedback. This is all before COVID, when we were taking that time individually or in small groups to help guide our students. So I do believe J-Talks are still doing the job that we set out for them to do. And we look forward to being able to do more of that post-COVID. Any questions from the group? We would like to extend an invitation for anybody to ever come visit us or give us a call. We have an advisory council which comes out of that ASCA model where we have different stakeholders from the community. We're looking for a school board member to be on that advisory council. It's only twice a year, and we usually cover a topic. We look for constructive criticism and feedback and things that we could do to improve on that topic. Right, and there are storms, so think about it. Think about it, get back to me. All your information is on that sheet. Yes.
Yeah, if you have a student that shows an interest in a certain field, let's just pick one, say a nursing student, do you encourage them to spend a semester in the work like out at the hospital? What do you call the program where they
So specifically to nursing, I had a conversation with a kid this afternoon about that. So there's a lot of really good opportunities for lots of different areas. Specifically for nursing, a lot of kids get their CNA license, their Certified Nursing Assistance license, and that's through the Start College Now program. So we're partnered with NTC, and those are just kind of things and opportunities that we learn because that's the best way to figure out, do I actually want to be a nurse? And then they would, after they would get their CNA license, they would work, a lot of them work at like Pinecrest or Bell Tower, and that's through the Youth Apprenticeship program, which the Youth Apprenticeship program, there's a lot of pride that we take in that. We're the biggest in the state of the amount of kids that we have, and it's just really, really beneficial to kids that want the experience, whether they're taking AP and advanced classes, or whether they're someone whose school's not their thing, and so they want to get out and be able to be a welder, so they can have 2 periods at the end of the day to be able to work more. But the Youth Apprenticeship program is what they would participate in after they kind of get some of that training. So that's specific to nursing, but then there's like a lot of places, as we all know, everywhere's hiring right now. So like we have kids at Resi and Agra and Rindell and all over getting jobs, and so that's a really good opportunity for them to.
Yeah, that's something I'd really encourage because I use the example, my oldest daughter wanted to be a lawyer. She spent 2 years in college for a lawyer, to be a lawyer, and started working for one and said, this is not for me, and then she went into education, but, it was 2 years basically wasted, So that's what I'd encourage the kids to, whatever they're interested, spend some time out there. Okay.
Maria, and then John.
Yeah, just one question. You had talked about the 80%, and that you can't quite get to the 80% because there's all this other stuff. What, in a perfect world, would you folks need to get to the 80%?
Well, one huge benefit this year is that we had social workers added. That's like already we're seeing the dividends paid in that, and that's something that, and because Karen is our supervisor at the district level, that we had talked about and never really thought that would happen, because so much of our time is spend doing other things, and it can be hard. So social workers are a huge benefit that we have. We also have an interventionist that's, at different levels, like at the high school we started and had an interventionist, so that's really helping, because it's just the amount of time and ways that you're pulled in different directions, that when we have more people that are there to help support us, I think that's been really beneficial.
I think too, ASCA, we're talking pie in the sky, so they said that in order to be able to hit the 80% and to do everything in program delivery the way it should be done, you should have 250 students to one counselor, and I don't think any of us are at that ratio.
What are we at?
We have 670. Two of us.
Okay. As opposed to 250, which is the ideal. Okay. All right, thank you. What's that?
335, 341.
Got it.
Thank you.
Anything else, Maria? John?
Yeah, just prior to COVID, we talked about changing, I think, like ACT readiness to like life readiness. And I was wondering, like, what role did the school counselors play in that conversion? Because that was kind of a big mindset. And then I'm always curious to, like, when do we start guiding students that it's maybe not okay, it might be okay to not consider college, so that they can actually start focusing on their trades before they get, F's and D's to motivate them, where does that fit in your model?
So your first question I can answer, because that's the redefining readiness. I don't know if that's at all levels, or for sure at the high school. That's something that we're really implementing this year, and it's basically 2 different ways that you can kind of become ready, because so much of it has been always like ACT based, and that if you don't have a high enough ACT score, you're gonna fail at life, and that we all know that that's not the case. And so we've been we've been over the last year especially talking a lot about that with administrators and stuff, of how do we, so it looks at like things like volunteer experience or the work-based learning. You get kind of points for that, or your attendance, because if you don't show up to school and then you get a job, that's going to be really difficult to be timely. And so we have played a big role in that, and are helping the administrators. It's more of like, right now we're at the point of how do we track all of that, because it's like each kid individually, there's 8 different categories, and it's like your 90% attendance from your freshman year and stuff, so it's going back and trying to categorize that and make sure that we meet it. But I think it's a really helpful thing, and we've helped in that process of looking at what we better.
And I think too, just speaking anecdotally of your second part of the question, making it known that students don't have to attend a 4-year university in order to be successful at life. I think even 5th grade J-Talks were saying, like, what are you good at? How does that translate? I've had more conversations, to be honest, with parents of reassuring them, your child is going to be okay. And I'll pull up that NTC website and say, look what they can do in a short amount of time, and they're not wasting time and credits and, unhappiness. And it helps that conversation develop, because I think maybe the old school guidance counselors did say you're either college material, which is great, or you're not. And I think we have to remedy some of those messages that are getting up to our kids.
And our parents, it sounds like.
And our
too.
parents,
Yeah, and I feel like we do equally promote all of those things. We promote NTC as much as we do, be Madison and Niagara. We really try to make sure everybody in the military, we're trying to make sure everybody's getting their equal time on the floor.
Great.
Go ahead, Ron.
Back to what Maria was saying, your caseload is way too high, you need more counselors, right? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we would love
Basically,
that.
yeah. And it would help the kids also.
You're in front of
right?
the board.
Yeah. See what else we could have.
Here's your chance. I'm asking, here's your chance.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it would be ideal to have, and why it is because that's really showing that you can have relationships and get to know kids. It's not just, at least speaking for the high school level, if you have so many kids on your caseload, a lot of it is going to end up being of, okay, do we know that you have your graduation requirements met and your transcript sent in and your schedule is all set and stuff, when you just don't have the ability to really build those relationships with kids, so.
One last question. Why is there such a shortage of social workers?
Good question. And there is a shortage of counselors too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a shortage of school psychs.
Right.
It's not just, we,
Yeah.
yeah.
And why is it? It isn't just caseload, there's gotta be something else besides, right? Is it burnout?
We do a really hard job some days.
I think it's burnout, I think it's what we see in everything. I mean, we're seeing there's a shortage of people entering the education field. It's a really hard job in a lot of places. I think a lot of people feel that it's a job they can do better themselves. And that gets hard, and when you're constantly under scrutiny, by many, in any field, in any position in education. And I think just like in our position where you have to have a master's degree to become a school counselor, I mean, that's a big commitment. It's a big educational commitment, it's a big financial commitment to become a school counselor. And I think you really have to be all in, and so if you're paying attention in the news a little bit, I think that's a big commitment. We love what we do, but I think it's hard for the next generation to sometimes want to improve that lead.
And I think going also, another thing is like, so I don't ever want to teach algebra, no desire to teach algebra, like, and just like, an algebra teacher will say to me, I can't imagine that you have a kid that comes to your office and you have to have a conversation about suicide, or call home and tell a parent that their child was assaulted, or, self-harm, and so some people are just like, yeah, it has to, just like a kindergarten teacher, right? They're crazy, kindergartners are crazy, and I don't know. But they look at our position and some people are like, no way, that's just not what we would want, so.
Okay.
It's just a comment, but just listening to you talk, reminds me of like in a company, in an organization that's not a school, we have a human resource department. And if you ever listen to conversations that take place in there, you were so happy to have human resource people, because they're people that can really do the job on the floor and build the parts and ship things, but no one can always listen to your employees and try to migrate their life issues. And then we put, 600 students in a building and expect it just to happen. That's not the case. It doesn't happen in our workplace, why would it happen in our school place? So it definitely seems like a critical thing to kind of balance the things that they're dealing with outside of school in order to make school work. And we have that in our own workplaces, and we expect it in our own workplaces, so.
And we have a lot of kids that are struggling, we have, especially with COVID, and we did, looked at how many kids are struggling with mental health, and we talked about that at Raise Your Voice, but kids are having a hard time and come to school with a backpack that's full of like their own life that they're bringing in, and it's hard, and so, and that's what I think we all try to like work on, is that a lot of times the school, the perception of a school counselor, my husband still doesn't really understand. He thinks I like put my feet up and eat bonbons all day often. And so until you really like are there, you don't necessarily get it. Like, this is really what kids are struggling with, and I still, even after 8 years, am amazed at like the resiliency of kids, because I'm like, how are you here today? How did you show up when you have parents that are not there, or whatever it might be? It's amazing how resilient kids really are, but that's our role in all of us. We'll say like that's the best job you can have, is just like sit and listen to a kid, because that's like the most important thing that you can do. So
They are truly amazing.
As you all are. Kudos to all of you. Thank you for being there.
Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, holy buckets, I don't know how you guys can handle the workload that you guys do with all the kids that are in each building. So hopefully, down the road here, the board members here can figure out something how to help you guys out, because, I've worked with a couple of you, and you guys do amazing things. And, gosh, I don't know where the kids would be without you guys, especially with, some that don't have the family behind them to help them out, because you guys are doing that on the front part as well. So I think you guys are doing a great job for what you guys have.
Thank you, ladies, very much. Excellent presentation. Much appreciated. And then closing out the administrative reports is my superintendent's report. Each month I share my monthly activities and meetings. As far as Maple Grove update, there is no information to report yet from the perspective of anything related to a potential purchase of the parcels and the building. Referendum survey timeline. I just wanted to touch on this. Later in our agenda, you'll see that we've got a draft referendum survey. Eddie and I have been working with school perceptions to get to that point that the draft is at now, as well as at the HR Finance Committee. And so what you'll see has gone through the HR Finance Committee. The referendum timeline is attached. We've also been organizing the pre-survey information and communications from our staff that will be shared soon in order to make sure that we're staying in line with that timeline. An informational video explaining the survey and frequently asked questions document will also be available and on our website once the survey is approved. And Central Office Administration is also discussing strategies and budget cuts in the event of a failed referendum. So you'll be seeing that information as well. So far, we are right on track with our timeline, pending any approval of the referendum survey this evening. Personnel rounding has started, and I just gave the 4 questions there for rounding. I added the 5th question myself. So you'll see the 5 questions that I asked our administrative team and anybody that is new to central office. I also try to have a rounding session with as a check-in. My goal is to check in with at least our administrative team, our administrative leaders 4 times throughout the year. And so far I have met with each building principal. John Hagemeister will be next, and that will be next week, and I'll continue to meet with the rest of the alt team at that point. Administrative evaluation progress says annual goals conferences are being scheduled at this time. I'm also trying to be much more visible. That's always a goal of mine, to be visible in our buildings. You can see there's been no alt meeting as of yet. The next alt meeting will be at the board admin retreat on September 28th. Central office administrative meeting agendas are posted below with 2 meetings, and you can also see the weekly bulletins that we shared for the district staff. Any questions at all regarding my report? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sampa. Next on our agenda is the committee reports. We'll start with the Facilities Committee. We have the attached draft minutes from the September 1st committee meeting. Myself as chair and other members of that committee are available for questions. We'd open to questions from the board at this time for Facilities Committee. Next, we would have on our agenda the Finance Human Resources Committee. We did provide the attached draft minutes from the September 1st committee meeting. John Smith as chair and other members of the Finance HR Committee are available. Any initial discussions before I turn it over to Eddie or Dr. Sample on a couple other informational only additional topics? Seeing no questions on the committee minutes, I would just have you highlight, Dr. Sample or Eddie, the strength and conditioning program, instruction selection, and the stop-it application. If you could just give a high-level review of what we talked about at committee. I know it was provided for information only, so just to review that since it's been asked by board members in the past.
Strength and conditioning is for all students, whether it be for credit, for an athletic team, or for even during summer school for credit. So that is a credit course, and then we select the instructor based on a certified physical education teacher, and that is who currently teaches the class. The Stop It application app is for our staff. We did renew that per the last committee meeting that we were at, and so that is available for our staff. That is for anything that they feel where they are in danger, in a threatening situation, or what have you. Then they can report right immediately to the Stop It app. That can be anonymous, but it certainly helps us if at a certain point that person is identified so that we can follow through. That's
all right.
my information for that.
Any additional follow-up questions on those 2 informational topics? Otherwise, we'll move on. to the CTP, or Curriculum Technology Pupil Services Committee. Our draft minutes were attached from the September 8th committee meeting. Maria Volpe is chair, and other members of our CTP committee are available for questions. Do we have any questions for our CTP committee this evening? Go ahead, Kendra.
I just have one question. In the meeting agenda notes, it talks about the transportation that happened, and it noted that what had happened and explained the reasoning why. And it said that you guys have been reaching out to everybody to apologize. I was just curious if, have we been able to reach out to the families impacted by that situation?
We
All
have,
of them? Okay.
and Dale could confirm that as well, but yes, when we get calls, yes, absolutely we have. And I followed up, and I will continue to follow up with some of those families to make sure that satisfaction is there.
I know it took a lot of time for you guys to do that, so thank you for doing that. I just wanted to check on that. And then there was one other item on there about the emails that were sent to the parents. I think there was a comment about that. Did those stop going out to the parents
The emails that were.
with the times of the bus
Oh,
pickup?
that were going out.
We recently, we haven't sent them out as frequently,
Yep.
and we changed it.
Sorry, Dale.
We have been sending some out, but only small chunks of it.
Okay.
Stuff that has complete information in.
Okay.
We revised the letter as well. It pulls from a mail merge, so it grabs a bunch of information. We did have a bunch of headlines in there that said, we know there's some information that's still forthcoming.
Yeah.
But the blanks overshadowed that, so that was a mistake on our part. But we have, like, I'll have with John, so we have been reaching out to those that have contacted us. And I'm still preparing a blanket statement for the rest that I have finally caught up to everybody that left me a voicemail or email and personally talked to them and everything, so.
Thanks, Dale. I know it was a big feat, so thank you.
That was a daunting task. but,
Yes.
We survived.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
just,
So we're underway.
No, you know, when this happened, all I received was an email from Dr. Sample saying we had issues. It'd be nice if we had explained, you know, more information is better than less, so that when we get calls from people, I have no idea what went wrong, you know. I expect things are gonna go wrong at times, you know, anytime you do some work, there's gonna be things go wrong, so. But I wouldn't look so dumb if I knew why it was.
And I apologize to that for any board members that have talked to personally about it yet. We were in such a state of recovery that first couple of days that it was really just trying to salvage what we could to get the ship, from sinking totally. So, again, I personally apologize to any board members or community members that it affected. It was really a humbling experience to get things back up and running, but we're going to grow from it. We're going to move forward, so.
Then one more question on it. Was Skyward at all involved? Because my daughter that teaches in the southern part of the state, they had the same fiasco. And she said their Skyward's program wasn't working. So, you know.
It was a series of small things that by itself was overcomable, but cumulatively, it was a disaster. Skyward had a little bit of part of that on our information flowing to Diversa. And it had to do with some of the dates and when things rolled over to schools that didn't go as flawlessly. It started to, but then when we got close to putting the information out to families, we found a couple of errors. We found a few more errors. So then we had to dig deeper. And then we realized how big it was, and we're like ready to push letters out, so we worked 20 hours a day for the first 3 days to try to get as much information back in there as we could and salvage it. So if that would have been the only thing that happened, we could have overcame it. But then there was a couple other things that just snowballed us.
Okay.
Maria, go ahead.
Just a quick comment, and you've heard me talk about this at CTP too, but it's good to hear, you know, that we're still planning on doing kind of a blanket communication to folks saying, you know, we're sorry this happened, and we've put, you know, things in place in the future that it's not going to happen again. so that's good to hear, and I agree with Nubs, it would be nice now, and I guess it's just a lesson going forward, to have known that there were problems, because I know I was blindsided 5 or 6 times, and I'm like, it's okay, everything's fine, and everything wasn't fine, so, but that's just a lesson moving forward, and obviously we recover and move on, and that's it.
I certainly appreciate the understanding and the confidence that we'll move forward.
Yeah,
Because we will,
absolutely.
and, we will net happen again, that's for sure.
You'll
That'll
be
be in-
watching for it, you know.
That'll be in the superintendent's corner also. In the next one, we're gonna explain a couple of different things, and transportation is included in there. We're also gonna let parents know what the expectation is in the event that their child is quarantined, their classroom is quarantined, or of course a building is quarantined. So, yes, transportation will be included there.
Excellent, thank you.
Everything running good now?
Yes.
90%, 100%?
Yeah, our buses are back in and done by 10 to 5 at night right now, so our transfers are happening. They're out of the high school and middle school lots. Our last transfers are done by 3:45. So everything's back to even a little bit better than it normally is right now. The drivers learned the new kids' names, so that was another one of those small pieces of the first day, is that they didn't know who was who or where they went, and we tried to get as much information, but it's running very well. We're on the last piece of information that we've got to fill in for paper, into the parents' letters, and then we'll send one more update out. And some that we've changed along the way for efficiencies, like, for example, we have 60, the bus of 69 and bus of 64 are making transfers from the middle school over to the high school to catch rides out to the east. So we added another bus, so we could split them up, which eased some strain on some of the other roads and tidied up. But until you look at those dots on the map, which I explained to you all several thousand times, and until you throw them all in a tube and send them across town, it looks a little bit easier than it was. So we learned a lot from that. We added an extra bus. I think we started with 3 buses at Cape Goodrich, and we're up to 5 coming across now. We've got about 400 more riders than we normally do. We're transporting nearly 1,100 students right now. A normal year for us is about 750. Last year we were like 640, so it was a tremendous amount of stuff that we took. And like I said, I said all the while, we had a great handle on it, and then we found that error, which snowballed. And so, but we anticipate probably by the end of the week or early part of next week, we'll have every bit of information out to the families with our last letter, and then it'll be for a mass email, and then it'll be a last individual things as they request changes or alternate forms, stuff like that.
Thanks, Ron. John?
I just want to extend you a compliment throughout this whole process, because if you take a look at 400 additional riders, if you take a look at error in the software platform, the consolidation of school, that some states are calling in the National Guard to drive buses. And then we had a bus company of 20, 30 years sell their entire assets to another bus company a couple months prior. It has that's definitely a recipe for, I think the term you used was disaster. But I've been there during server fires, disasters of my own, and the stress that places someone under is immense. Your blood pressure's through the roof and you're ready to crack. And then when you see emails coming from your staff and yourself at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, you guys didn't give up. And so, right, and you couldn't. So that deserves a compliment, because there's an event and a series of events that take place, and then you guys responded. And we pay a handsome sum of money to an organization that teaches the entire organization event, response equals outcome. So here's your outcome, 100% of the kids are getting to school. So thank you for your rational, calm response to an event that you were only partially in control of.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'll pass it on to Nicole.
Absolutely. I would not want to have been in your driver's seat at that point.
No. Driver's seat.
I went to pick up.
All right, thank you. John Maria had a
Just one
follow-up.
quick question, I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, but with regard to, since you're up here, at the different schools, the picking up and dropping off, is that, I don't know if I should ask you this, Dale, ask Dr. Sample if this is the right place, is that going better? Are we more smooth at each of the schools? I know there were hiccups at the beginning of the school year. How's that going?
I can speak to Kate. I was out there for a few days, and that got much better. We have a lot of parents transporting. We're hoping that that number will be reduced a little bit more. How's Washington?
Very well, and I'll give my hats off to Heather and Amy and Matt, collectively at those elementary schools where we had a lot of shuffling and confusion. They really assisted us very well in getting the kids on the bus, and we were on the phone all day long. And they really streamlined it, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Washington's down to about a 15-minute dismissal time. And Kate is probably doing that same, we're transferring.
It's 8 at this
8
moment.
now?
Like to yell time.
Because we do also, I think we're putting about, I think around 200 kids out of each, out of Kate, and I think about 160 out of Washington on a bus. But on top of that, we're putting another 200 in a car at Kate, and I don't know, Amy, how many at Washington, are 140 or so? So, we hardly have any walkers, and it's a lot to do with the parents' uneasiness about changing schools and not familiar with the neighborhood probably. So there's a lot of business that happens between 3:05 and 3:30 at the elementaries, and hats off to those team members that run the buildings, because collectively, they kept their heads together too and assisted the process of putting it all back together. And I really appreciate what they've done to help us as well.
Good deal. How about middle school, high school?
Middle school is working very well. They've got a lot of staff there. They're a transfer point, and then high school as well. So everybody, there was a lot of staff present. They worked extremely well. We had to make improvements on the fly, and each day got better from what I was able to see. The high school and middle school times and the middle school transfers, Dale, how's that specifically working?
Really well. We added another bus to the middle school as well, because we had a tremendous amount of buses coming back from there. So we take some kids from Cape and get to the middle school, then we add some middle school kids and we bring them back to the east side of town. So we found we needed another bus. We've got them organized and lined up so that they don't have to run around the school. Now, we do have an anomaly here and there where we just can't help it because of where the child and family lives. But those are getting out of there pretty well also. And again, hats off to Ryan, Mark, and Shannon, Brad, and Meg with high school. They do a good job assisting us in organizing and communicating. So I think probably the longest wait is at the high school, because we have kids that are coming from those 3 schools back over to this side. So we have to, that's like the second last is the middle school, high school's the last to get them out of town. But I think we're probably down to 20 minutes waiting. We pull in at 3:20, I think, at the middle school. And they're out.
10 minutes, we're in that 10-minute range right now.
Yeah, so they're,
Awesome.
I've been the first week I was watching cameras, and they got a lot of bodies out there, but I haven't had a look at it anymore, because I have confidence they got it under control. So they get all the building administrators and their staff, the aides, they all had a part in helping put this back together with us. So I can't be more appreciative to them. They have a big caseload all day long, and they're endlessly working to help these kids and families. So it's a great thing to see what we have here as a collective family.
Right, nice. Okay.
Kendra?
I was just gonna say kind of a kudos as well, even though we have questions, I appreciate the information. I've physically been a mom picking up my children at schools, and I've seen the improvement. I knew it would happen. And you guys are all phenomenal working together as well. So it's definitely, you call it family, it's true. You guys have helped as a team make it better, so.
Yeah, even the families that were angry with us the first couple of days that I reached back out to, they understand. But they're anxious moms and dads, and they understand that we too are moms and dads. And we've been through similar situations, so when you keep a rational bed, you can have a good conversation. So it's like I said, it was a humbling ordeal. I'm glad that we're on the downside of it, and we're gonna get stronger because of it.
Kendra. Go ahead, Linda.
I was gonna say that we're still having issues by the pickup for the high school where there's cars still sitting out on Highway G though. So, I mean, sometimes you can pull up here and you got like 5 cars waiting to pull in because you got some parents that are not pulling up far enough so that everybody can get into the parking lot. So I don't know if maybe there's like a sign or something that we could put out, say, please move forward, or if we need to have some cones with somebody, because sometimes, like, even like when you're pulled out on the road here, there's other cars that are not either paying attention or they care to not slow down and move over, where they're just going past you at 30 miles an hour to go wherever they gotta go, but they gotta go out into that turn lane, you know, that middle lane. So I don't know if there's something different that we can do there.
I'll reach out to Chief Bennett and see if there's things that we can get assistance for some traffic control up there. A lot of this, training the parents of what's expected and how it works, because a lot of them are new parents.
That's what I'm saying.
They're new freshmen to the school, they don't know how it works
Right.
yet. So, we'll keep communicating with them and.
Yeah, I mean, nothing you're doing wrong, it's just maybe there's some way of communication.
Is there any high school administrators here?
I don't think so.
I think, I thought that they have, I thought Shannon and Brad and maybe, I thought they're out there too.
Yeah, they are, but nobody's listening to them,
Right.
so I don't know, maybe somebody's gotta get a
Right.
ticket. Somebody's gotta get a ticket. I
At a
don't
certain
know.
point, you can't really hit a car and tell them
I
to
don't know.
move, so.
Maybe somebody's gotta get a ticket.
Right.
I don't know.
And that's it too. I spoke with Shannon, and he says there's only one rule, and that's to pull all the way up
Yes.
and open the door. But
Right, yeah.
That's
Open the
it.
door, get in, stop talking, and get moving.
I know
but-
he's continuing to
Yeah, and
communicate with
he's-
his parents.
Yeah, he said he was having, problems with parents not listening, but I guess maybe they just need a yellow ticket or something saying, hey, because sometimes if people aren't paying attention, it's only a nightmare where somebody's gonna get rear-ended or somebody's gonna get really hurt, and it's not gonna be our fault, but I don't know. It's just something.
Really know that we'll
Yeah.
following up on those certain.
Yeah, I just thought it's like, because, who knows, there's crazy drivers out there.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge to get parents to listen. I've seen so many administrators at
Yeah.
the schools going like this, keep moving, keep moving, and so, yeah, keep going.
I know.
And it's tough. It's
Yeah,
a tough job.
It is.
My mother lives across the street from Cape Goodrich for 60 years, so if you want an update on the traffic at 3 o'clock, she can give you a play-by-play. And she says, you're doing well, and they get it figured out every day.
Chad, go
I
ahead.
just want to make sure that the school staff know how much, I witnessed Thursday, Wednesday, that Thursday I went to middle school and watched. That was something to see the way those people work to get those kids on the buses. I mean, they deserve a big thank you, and I'm sure it was at the other schools watching, but I just had time to stop there and just kind of watch. I just stood in the church parking lot and I was watching Mr. Seaman walking around, and he was directing traffic. So they did a very good job. So everybody deserves a big thank you for that and help straighten that out.
Thank you, Chad. All right. I believe we can excuse Dale at this point. Well,
Thanks, Dale.
I think we've gone through our CTP committee discussion. We'll move on the agenda. We don't.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
Kevin, I'm sorry. I know the CTP, it was a bit unusual because we had an emergency on Wednesday night at CTP and Karen had to leave. So we were not able to discuss COVID at that
Okay.
point in time. Dr. Sample has mentioned that he would be putting out the superintendent's corner to outline the procedures with regard to virtual learning, did you say?
Correct, how students will receive instruction during quarantine.
Okay, and I guess, I just had a question on that. I don't know if it's appropriate to bring it up at this point in time. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I've had questions with regard to virtual learning, and I guess the questions are twofold. With regard to establishing quarantine times or times away from school, I just would like a little bit more information on that, please, and I think the community needs that. And also with regard to who is eligible for virtual learning and what the expectations are, and what's an excused absence versus an unexcused absence with regard to COVID, and how do we treat, I know I'm throwing a lot of this at you, but these are questions I've had. COVID versus another illness. From the information I've gotten, I'm not saying that it's correct, that we're treating other illnesses differently than COVID with regard to being able to virtually learn, and what the expectation is on an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. So any information that we can get out to the community, whether it be right now, I guess I'm just trying to understand.
And all of that information, did you want some answers tonight as well?
If you could give just a brief answer, like what the quarantine times are, how we treat waiting for a test result versus.
Sure. Karen can help. Karen, would you mind coming up? Karen can help, and also our website has been a wealth of information. We've got a lot of information on there as to symptomatic, non-symptomatic, and quarantine periods. What to do if you're quarantined, and Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Can you turn that microphone off for us, please? I think it went off. Underneath.
I have a couple of questions too.
Yep, thank you.
You gotta kind of hold it.
Hold it for a second.
Did it go off? Because it might.
It might have gone off on
Oh, mine's off too.
Oh, it must have died. We need new batteries then.
Thank you. Everyone wants to give up their mic. Okay, it's dead. Let me switch to a different, to the website real quick, if I may.
Thank you.
Just when we think
You're
we
welcome.
have them all ready to go. There's always a
On the website, you will find the COVID information as far as all of the procedures. With that, hang on, I'm gonna get to it. There's different guidelines based upon what situation a student is in at the time. And I'm gonna turn my computer around for just a moment. And you can see at the top, every week I typically update this on Mondays. It's going to give you the number of people who are tested positive, and also the number of students that are quarantined. Now, the one thing, as I said last year, that you need to remember is these are cases predominantly that we are processing through school, but there are people who are quarantined on other situations. For example, someone in their family, so those numbers are going to be in there also. Then as you go down, it's going to show you the screening, and this is the same screening as last year. It's just a quick reminder, really, for parents to maybe have those questions before, thank you, before their student leaves of a morning. How are you feeling? Not that we're going to ask everybody that, because for some that would be, ooh, I'm not feeling very good today. But really, just to always have that thought in the back of your mind as far as how a person is feeling. And I will share with you that the Delta variant that we are seeing right now is 5 to 6 times more contagious than the virus that we saw last year. And we are seeing much more community spread, and we're seeing a huge spread within school buildings. And that will be reflected when the numbers are updated next week. I'll be very honest, as we sat here, 2 more cases came through. Underneath there, you're going to find information. I continue to put resources up that were provided for the families. I also provided a resource at each of your spots tonight, which was a recent TPI information that I just received. And then you're going to go down and you're going to have information on when a student can come back. If a student has symptoms, comes to school, they're not feeling well, they're sent home. They may be screened prior to that. And if they are exhibiting COVID-type symptoms, which we know can mimic other illnesses, but we need to err on the side of caution, that student would remain home for 10 days. If the parent chooses to have their student tested,
and they receive a negative test result, they may return to school as soon as all symptoms are gone also, with a negative. If a family decides to not test, then the student would remain out for 10 days. If a student is identified as a close contact and they are quarantined, the district follows best practice, which is 14 days. We have parents who do have questions, well, why is this one 10, why is this 14? It has to do with whether you're a positive case or not. Then you add in there the other layer that if a student or a staff member is vaccinated, then they're able to be in the school as long as if they've been vaccinated and they wear a mask for 14 days, they have an option to be tested. It's not mandatory testing. When we contact trace, which the building administrators and staff do a wonderful job, you can imagine these cases come at them and all of a sudden they have to stop whatever they're doing and identify anyone that was in close contact. If a person is vaccinated, they may self-disclose that, which we typically see, and then the Lincoln County Health Department will verify that. I can share that we have 2 cases, again, that came through as I've been sitting here, where students have indicated that they were vaccinated, but unfortunately, they've only received 1 vaccine, so therefore they have to do the 14-day quarantine. Okay, so that's kind of the rundown. Anytime there's a case within the school, there is an email that goes out to all families just indicating that there has been a student or staff member identified as having tested positive, and they will receive information from Lincoln County Health Department only if their student is identified. I know there's lots of frustration with parents because just like all of us, parents are tired of COVID, but unfortunately, we need to do even more due diligence because of just people being tired of it and that type of thing. As far as virtual learning, I'll do my best. If a student is quarantined, there are opportunities for them to participate. That participation looks different depending on the grade level. High school has Google Classrooms, as is the middle school, the elementaries do Seesaw, as well as River School for Young Learners. What's very, very important for our parents to understand is virtual schooling is not an option. Virtual schooling, having that opportunity, is for a student that is quarantined or is home tested positive. If they're interested in the virtual option, then they would need to look at another avenue such as Bridges Virtual Academy. And again, that's a confusion point for a parent. It's not where if you're homesick, you're automatically going to be given access to virtual learning.
You mean sick with another illness other than COVID?
Could be sick with another illness, or a student just doesn't want to go to school. Because we're not a virtual school.
Right, right. And I get that. I guess the question that came to me was, you know, if my child has a fever, but they don't have COVID, and they're staying home, why can't they hop on virtual learning? It's just for the COVID cases, so it seems unfair to the child who still wants to keep up with the work and can't get on Google Classroom because they're not allowed to. But I don't know if I'm misinterpreting this. I'm just saying what was brought to me. So if my child doesn't have COVID, but they're ill and still would like to go on the virtual classroom, they cannot? Is that a correct statement? I guess I'm just trying to understand.
Correct, and what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at a letter that the middle school is sending home or already sent home to their parents. And so, one of the things that we need to make sure that we distinguish between is if you are feeling well, but you're home for quarantine, if you're not feeling well, you're gonna be absent. If you're not feeling well, you're not gonna do work anyways. We want you to get better. And so whether you're quarantined with symptoms, not feeling well, or quarantined with no symptoms, but you're still quarantined, that's gonna be the difference.
Okay, and then help me understand this, but then if somebody is quarantined at home, a student is quarantined at home, they're marked unexcused if they don't log in. So if they're not feeling well enough, if we take that stance, that they're not feeling well enough, so they shouldn't be virtual, why are we marking them unexcused?
Then that's gonna
Or
be-
required for physical education?
Sure. Then that's going to be just like, even thinking back 2 years ago, if my child is sick, I'm calling in that child, and they have an excused absence up to 10 days. That child is homesick, just like the old days. They're not gonna do any work, they're homesick. So they're not being marked unexcused if they're not logging in. If they're too sick, they're gonna be excused by their parent if they're out ill.
Okay, so that's the right process, so
That's
if.
the confusion.
That's the
As a
confusion right there.
parent, as a parent with your child sitting at home, you would not think you would have to call school and excuse them from
Mhm.
school.
Mhm.
So it's an education issue of the parent.
Right, especially if the school knows that the child has tested positive for COVID.
Oh, if it's.
If somebody's
Correct.
positive for COVID, I'm, as a parent and a board member, I'm saying to you, are they getting marked unexcused if they don't log into virtual learning? Or perhaps a physical education class, which is the example that was brought to me. If this child is laying in bed, they are not going to log into, do their physical activity because they're too ill.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm just trying to
Right, go
understand,
ahead.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I just
So,
wanna know what to say.
We're working through all of those scenarios, like, the most, one that's good, like, right now in this moment, is I have staff members that are too sick to host their Google Classroom.
Mhm.
So, in that instance, I'm sending out, you're required to log in, but then I had a couple of rooms that are not functioning, and on the bottom of my note, I had pushed that said, please follow the Google Classroom instructions, because those teachers are still posting
Sure.
their instructions the best they can, obviously, in those classrooms. We are defaulting to having them present if they're logging into those other core classes. The expectation at the middle school is that they're logging into their core classes, math, literacy, science, social studies. And then if the other courses are asynchronous, not live, but they still are all posting expected assignments, expected outcomes. The emphasis I wanted to place on all of our families is we are an in-person school.
Mhm.
Shannon and I together, we are not, last year we went about going 2 different modes, and it was a backbreaker for our staff.
Mhm.
And we are trying to, even right now, we're trying to make it so that it's not that way. Our goal is to make sure our kids don't fall behind, right? But we want to make sure that they're out for that required amount of time. Hopefully that's minimal, and get them right back into the fold. Last year, it was very difficult when Shannon and I basically pulled the plug on the hybrid and said, everybody's back in front of
Right.
us. That's the best place for all of our learners to be. And, we do still have the people that are arbitrarily calling and say, well, I'm just gonna go virtual today. And I have parents that are listening to their middle school kids, convincing them that's not how. Mark and I were on the phone with several parents this afternoon, and they were asking exactly that. The focus is, if you're not in quarantine, if you're not, now there's some accentuating circumstances that we work through, right? Like, I have some students that are in surgical procedure protocol, and they've been kicked out a couple times, and they're doing it as precautionary. That's me and Mark saying, excuse, COVID, but that's that communication. And any parent that calls us and talks to us, and we talk through that with them. So, like, any person that's reaching out, if there's confusion, we are managing that on a case-by-case basis. I do understand the frustration, I do, because it's the same for our teachers, right? Like, what do I do, Ryan? How are we gonna manage this in this moment? So, I wanted to be on the same page before I push what I did today. But the goal is that we're here, and we're coming back as quickly as possible. I certainly understand the question of treating other illnesses, but like Dr. Sample said, it's okay to be sick. Like I tell our staff, I'd rather have you well, you're not missing a ton. It's like there's a difference between participating in most of your classes and not doing one, and we're correcting that. We have a window that we can correct that, and that's just a simple email to the instructor, email to our staff. We made a ton of them this afternoon with corrections of attendance, if you will. So
Per our discussion this morning too, Ryan, we're still gonna err in favor of students. We don't want attendance or unexcused absences to be the priority. We want the students' health and their instruction and achievement to be the priorities.
And I guess that's a concern that was brought to me, you know, once a child starts to get unexcused absences, whether or not it be because they have COVID or they're quarantined because they were exposed from a family member or whatnot, they don't want to start racking up unexcused absences
Right.
because that affects their privileges, that of course could affect, I believe, affect truancy at the high school. And I think that was, yeah, I mean.
We work through those on a case-by-case basis. Every parent that reaches out to me about truancy, that's a communication thing. There's a difference, right? Like if we call you, the Senate Secretary is calling you and there's no contact, that's a difference than the parents that are reaching out to us on a consistent basis, telling us where they actually are. You know, that's a completely different situation.
Okay, so my piece is to encourage the parents to contact Ryan or Sharon or
Yep.
whomever. Okay,
Yep.
that's good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I got a couple
Go ahead,
questions.
Linda.
Just because I'm kind of going through it right now.
Sure.
We're, our second weekend. But, so, the class portion of this thing, you know, I've actually gotten 2 phone calls saying Hunter's been absent. However, he has not. He's been logging in daily for each class because he's out in the living room while, you know, I'm working myself, so it's quite entertaining. So I don't know, I'll be calling tomorrow to say, hey, he's there. However, I don't know, how ready were our teachers for this again? I mean, because there's been times where Hunter's logging, and I can only know because it's happening at my house, is teachers given a test, that it's on their tablet, teacher says, Hunter, don't worry, you can sign off now, you can do it when you get back. Well, is that happening for other things as well? Because now that's just gonna put him behind the rest of his classmates while he's having to be at home.
I will say, and I will mention this, that Glenda had met with all of our attendance secretaries district-wide to be on the same page to notify. That's why you're obviously getting the notifications, because that was one thing that was not happening last year, the way it should, is that we had parents that obviously are going to work and they have to work, and their kid would be like, yeah, I logged in all my classes. And then there would be no notifications, right, with that, and we weren't per se on the same page. We did that, and that's what we're correcting, and what I was alluding to with that emailing those instructors that marked them absent. I would say reach out to them first, because we are correcting it as we go. We're learning that as we go, and I know Virginia, at least at the middle school, is adjusting that when we know about them.
Okay.
So, the teaching staff, right now, the way COVID is, it's a day-to-day basis, like where we're at, in all honesty. I don't think we thought we were gonna be where we're at right now with the situation.
Okay.
But we were gonna make it through it. We're gonna stay positive and make it through it.
Definitely, I
So-
just didn't know, cause like, there was, last week, there was one teacher that, came on and did the class, and Hunter was able to watch it. That was it, out of all of his classes. And then now this week, I think there's maybe 2 other teachers, and so it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's not just mine, I'm just using it as an example.
I will tell you that,
Excuse
I
me.
have a fairly significant number of teachers that are home ill.
Okay, okay.
That is the reason behind, and that's why I put in the message today to parents, because we obviously ended up quarantining another large group of kids today, that just be prepared to follow directions within Google Classroom, because that's, you know, I don't wanna start giving substitutes access to the Google Classrooms to change things, but that's not their place to do that.
No, I understand, I just didn't know how ready we were for this to happen again. You know, are we gonna?
Yeah, we haven't really left it.
You know, just didn't know, you know, if what we went through last year, if there was things that we could use to pick up back where we left off from what happened last year. I don't know.
It is different.
It's just, it's awful.
It is much
really.
different, the delivery system is different, you know, we're trying to maintain and stay, And the goal is for our kids to try to follow their schedules the best that we can. Last year there were 3 or 4 different schedules that we created at both buildings. It's difficult, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to do it a little bit different, and we'll make it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know. I was just asking because I'm sure I'm not the only one wondering what's going on, because it was last week here was kind of a little frustrating, but we'll make her. I just don't want our kids to suffer from some of this. Once again, Hunter needs to be in school, but because that's the best place for him, so. But I know you guys are doing a good job. I never doubted that, so, thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Mhm.
John, go ahead.
Excuse me.
I just wanted to share that I know that quarantine is a county health issue that the schools have absorbed and are trying to work in coordination with county health. And so, we have our expectation of free and appropriate public education, but when we inject something as don't let your kid come to school for 10 or 14 days, it's going to make a big barrier to accomplishing this task. I have a very unique, personal experience just recently, and one of the things I can say is when you go into a classroom and you try to teach, and you have to spend the first 7 to 10 minutes trying to log on to your 19 different tabs and platforms to have them log themselves out in the middle of class, to be interrupted from a monitor several times from the kid that accidentally logged themselves out in the middle of class, to upload the video at the end of class in the prep period of time that you're supposed to prepare for your lesson from class, to get your kids that came back from quarantine that want to get caught up in their homework. And then you have the couple kids that actually email you throughout the day because they are trying to be diligent and stay ahead. And then you donate probably about 3 hours of your time communicating with 2 kids, and if you multiplied that by 70 kids, that would be 210 hours of time you don't have. It's literally what each teacher is going through every single day as these kids are coming in and out of the classroom. And so it's like, it's never gonna be good. It's gonna be horrible until the day we stop doing it, because there's just not enough time. And when those kids do, it's great when the kid emails you 7 times. I feel wonderful, but honestly, that's at least 3 hours this week on one kid. And then if you multiplied it. So I just share that as like a real life example of what I've seen. And it's, the funny part is the kids are fine. The kids are absolutely fine. They come back and they're like, what do we need to make up? How much time do I have? When do you want this? And so I think we have to keep in perspective that teachers are doing the best that they can. The kids are absolutely chill, and they're not trying to get away with anything. And I think that parents just don't necessarily have the perspective of what both the student and the teacher are going through and trying to migrate a day in COVID. It's the best you can is literally all you're going to get until this is over with.
You said that well. The teachers right now, they're managing multiple platforms right now. And
mind-boggling.
The parents, I hope understand, like, if the teacher's not like face-to-face in front of the screen, there's 20 kids sitting in front of them with 5,000 questions. That's why we're focused, Shannon and I were focused on we're in-person schools. That's exactly, the goal for the teachers have to make sure that they don't get too far behind. Keep them, catch them. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Maria, for rounding up our CTP questions and follow-ups. Moving along on the agenda, no additional unfinished business, so we'll start this evening's Board of Education business. Our first item there is our referendum survey discussion and approval. There was an attached topic summary sheet from Dr. Sample and Eddie Then. They were using the services from School Perception, specifically Bill Foster. And there was a recommendation from the Finance HR Committee to bring the draft survey to the full board for input and discussion this evening before possible approval of the final survey yet tonight. So, anything you would like to highlight, Dr. Sample, or?
We have, Bill Foster is available to be with us virtually. I know that some of you met Bill almost, 3.5 years ago. And one thing I can say is this has gone to committee. What you're seeing right now is what was approved for the draft survey so far. It's real important throughout this entire process, and we all learned this 3.5 years ago, to trust the professionals, and Bill Foster is very good at what he does. He was off by 0.07, I think, so I'm still holding that to him. But as far as the margin of error that we're going to pass a referendum. So what you see with that draft survey is exactly where we're at thus far. We'll be looking for approval, we're looking for discussion, we're looking for input, even potential revisions if needed. And so, Bill, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Bill, is there anything that you want to start with as you take us through the draft survey?
Sure, what I thought I would do, well, first of all, thanks for having me tonight, and thanks for allowing me to do this virtually. I do recognize and look at the board members on the website. I think I've met some of you a few years ago. You're still on, so it's good to see you again. I'm the same guy with just a little more gray hair now, so no change there. So what I first wanted to do was just go through and cover the timeline. So I don't know, John, would people be able to see my screen, or can I just talk through it?
They could see it if you want, Bill. Go ahead, if you want to share, there's a little square with an arrow pointing up to the sky, and you can go ahead and hit that.
All right. So what I'm putting up first is your timeline, and it starts out, and actually goes all the way back, I think John and I talked back on November 5th to kind of wrap our minds around the project. We had a kickoff call in April, and then we've been working on the survey really throughout the summer. So we're up to, and as John said, the core team did review this earlier in the September. We're up to September 15th. If we can have the board review it and approve it tonight, we'll be on schedule to get this off to print towards the end of September. Right now, we've got it, it'll go out for professional proofing and then go to print around September 23rd. There's going to be some pre-survey communications plan that will go out in addition to augment the survey into September, early October. The staff will receive a copy and be able to take the survey. We like to always have the staff be able to take the survey first. So if there's any questions, they can call the district and say what's up, if their question's answered, because we know the staff is very important to be able to respond, because they've got friends, neighbors, and parents in their classrooms every day. We're anticipating the survey will hit mailboxes around October 13th. We always say we can't control the U.S. Post Office nor the printer, and so therefore we don't know the exact date, but it'll be the week of the 13th. And then right now we've got a deadline of November 1st. We will then work on creating the report, and my goal will be to hopefully come up and see you in person. If not, we'll do it virtually on November 17th. And then the board can receive the information and then think about it over between the 17th, and then have a discussion right before the holidays on December 22nd. If there appears to be support for a project, then it would be required that the board would adopt and approve a resolution in early January. The deadline for that is January 25th in order to put anything on the ballot for a spring survey. Actually, I think this would be for an April 22. Well, there it is, April 5th referendum. So that's kind of our timeline. Any questions on that?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. So what we have is we put together for you a 4-page survey. I think last time I was up, we did an 8-page survey. So this will be one 11 by 17 sheet of paper. That's right. It'll be folded. It'll get put into an envelope. And what you're looking at right now is the opening letter. This is coming from the entire board as well as John. And we've got It says, "We are incredibly grateful for the support the Merrill area communities provide for our schools, for our school district. This support is a major reason why we continue our tradition of providing a high-quality education for our students." In 2018, voters supported an operational referendum that allowed us to maintain our programs, services, and facilities. Next year, the funding from that referendum will end. If voters do not approve renewing the referendum, we will need to make significant cuts to programs, course offerings, and/or daily expenses. The purpose of this survey is to present our current financial situation and gather feedback from the community on how to move forward. So you're going to work with school perceptions. Our job is to keep everyone's information confidential. We're asking for 5 to 10 minutes to take the survey. So let me hit a pause. Does that sound like a message that the board is comfortable with? You see heads
Yep.
going up and down? Okay. The call to action is take the survey. We said to save money or to reduce mailing expenses, people will be able to take it online. So when this gets printed, the printer will spray a alphanumeric code on there. It's a unique code. It can be used once, but only once. So we always want to be sure that we can come back and say there is data integrity, that nobody tried to cook the books and take the survey multiple times. But we want everybody to take it once. Or people can take it by paper, and when this gets printed, there will be a business reply envelope that'll get inserted into the mailing. So if they want to have a cup of coffee and do it paper and pencil, they can mail it back to school perception. We will process that survey for them. And if you have an additional adult in your household and you would like a survey, you can call the district office. So when these get printed, we will drop off for probably an extra couple hundred surveys. So if there are people with more than one adult that would also like to take the survey, they'll be able to do it. We found this to kind of be the best way to make sure every household gets one survey, but you will get a request for a few extra ones. So then we got a deadline of November 1st, and again, final results presented on November 17th. The next page of the survey is kind of what you would expect, which is our demographics information. So we want to be able to make sure the person actually lives in the district. You might ask, why do we ask that? And the answer is really two things, or two areas. One is there might be some staff member that takes the survey, but they don't live in the district. We will remove their data from the financial support questions. There's other questions we're asking. We want to know what they say, but if they don't live in the district, they can't vote, so that'll be removed. We're going to look at employees as a subgroup. They're very important. We're going to look at parents, but your most important subgroup are the folks that say, no, I don't work in the district, I don't live in the district. And they represent the majority of your voters. So at the end of the day, that is the group that literally gets the most votes. We will also be able to look at the data from a municipality standpoint, or if you're where you live in terms of city or township. As well as age. We want to make sure that our seniors are well represented in the data, so we've kept that question in. We have one overall satisfaction question, and this is a kind of a relatively new question for us. We've got it over the last few years. This is one that we ask on virtually every community survey we do throughout the state, and this allows us to do some comparison with other districts. So this will be kind of a helpful kind of a benchmark question for us.
Bill, excuse the interruption, but I do see one that, revision that would be made, need to be made. We need to remove the town of Hamburg from the townships.
Oh, they went away, okay. All right. I will do that. So then we get into the actual background information that we felt was important to share. And again, when we do a survey, really half the goal is to gather data, half the goal is to educate. So we felt this is important information to share. Like many other districts in the state, the Merrill Area Public School, or MAPS as it's known, have been dealing with ongoing budget challenges over the last 20 years. Significant reductions have been made to balance the budget, including eliminating more than 90 staff positions. Holy cow, that's a lot of people. closing 6 schools and consolidating operations and eliminating post-employment benefits. In just the past 2 years, we have further reduced expenses by closing Jefferson Elementary and reconfiguring the grade levels of the remaining schools, eliminating more than 10 staff and 4 administrative positions, and allowing the Maple Grove Charter School to detach from MAPS. In addition, we paid down outstanding loans to save interest expense. In 3 years, the district will be debt-free. As you can see from the chart to the right, all these efforts have decreased the district's mill rate, which is used to calculate property taxes. The decline has saved the taxpayer $267 for each $100,000 of property value over the past 6 years. So that helps, people say, well, I don't really understand mill rate, but that helps say, okay, well, this is exactly how it affects you. So that is background information that we put into the survey. Then we get into more of the specifics. In 2018, Merrill residents approved a 4-year operating referendum. This money was used to maintain programs and services, align the MAP salaries with neighboring districts, to retain staff, update the technical education program, including building a fab lab, and fund critical maintenance projects. Next year, the funding from this referendum will end. Therefore, the Board of Education is asking voters to consider renewing an operational referendum. This funding will help us maintain the quality of educational programs that families, students, and the community have come to expect. Without a replacement referendum, a budget shortfall averaging $3 million each year is projected over the next 5 years. Therefore, the following options were developed for community feedback. So this is really what's the essence of the survey. The 3 options that the community will be able to weigh on is renew at $2.5 million. This would still need, the district would still need to reduce the budget by $500,000 each year beginning in the 2022-2023 school year. Or we could renew at a $3.25 million per year. This could maintain current programs and services as well as some of the academic and mental health professionals added in the past 2 years. Those are really as a result of the ESSER funds that have become available. But they're going to go away at some point, and so would those people potentially. Or option 3 would renew at $3.75 million per year. That way the district could maintain current programs and services as well as all the academic and mental health professionals added in the past 2 years. Those would be the options. And then Eddie did a great job helping us create this chart, which is really a visual that shows how your tax mill rate has been going down, and then the corresponding tax impact of each of the 3 options. And as you can see, well, what it says, the graph to the right displays the projected tax impact associated with each option. As you can see, all options would increase the tax mill rate the first year, and then would decline for each of the next 4 years. So I thought that really puts it into context of what we're asking people to consider supporting and what they can expect on their tax bills. We then ask the question, which option would you support? The 2.5, the 3.25, or the 3.75? Or I wouldn't support any referendum, or I don't know, I need more information. So let me hit pause, and any questions, comments, concerns with the approach?
John, go ahead.
I have one question about the sentence that says, without a replacement referendum, a budget shortfall averaging $3 million a year is projected over 5 years. I mean, I guess my question is the accuracy of that statement? Because that would be saying that in 5 years period, we'd have $15 million shortfall in funding, and it's a 4-year referendum. You know, like, how much validity is there, or is it to be interpreted, you know? I think that sentence needs to be as accurate as possible, and I don't know if I would right now imagine us having $15 million of less funding over 5 years.
Yeah, I think we need to double check that statement, Bill, because essentially the first year is $3 million, and with the student declining enrollment piece, we're averaging about 500 per year in addition. So it's not $3 million per year, unless, again, depending on how you frame it, if you're intending to say that it's 3 million each year because of the 2.5 million you didn't get, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just
Yeah.
one verbiage, but, yeah, the cumulative effect is not 15 million, but it's just about the verbiage that's used there, so that people understand it correctly. It's basically 3 million plus 500 a year at the current student decreasing trend.
And I could encourage you to maybe limit it to 4 years, because it's a 4-year referendum. So like, just so it's a like statement to the options below, and that if we can get as tight as possible to what we really would go on record as saying is the anticipated shortfall. Because right now, it just seems a little bit deeper than what I would truly imagine.
Definitely 4 years.
That's it, but otherwise, it's great.
Okay.
I had a question about the 2.5. Is that normally what, I guess, boards ask for? Is the first one to be shortcoming, or why aren't we asking for 3 so that we stay even?
Great question. 2.5 was our amount that was approved last year, so that's where the discussion, and I can be corrected certainly if I'm incorrect, that's where the discussion landed during committee, was our voters approved $2.5 million a year, and so we wanted to start with that as a basis. Some districts down south, one district south of Wausau it goes for 33, 110. They're going for major dollars. So this is, the 2.5 is only significant to our referendum 3.5 years ago.
But you're right, Chad, that's what we talked
I mean,
about.
yeah, because to me, if we're gonna ask for a referendum, we should, to me, our first question should be so we stay where we're at and not go down. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I think that we got into that same discussion at committee because we started talking about the ballot. You know, like we started talking about why would we ask the voters to approve a $2.5 million referendum when that just means we're gonna have to cut things. And then we, after a long conversation, circled back around and reminded that this is a survey. And so really we're trying to gauge the willingness of the community to either renew the current referendum, or are they willing to invest further in a higher amount. So it's not like we're printing the election verbiage. We're trying to allow this company to tell us what the election verbiage most likely would be, so it passes. Because if it comes back at like 63% said that they would do 2.5, but 7 said no way on the other, right? Then we would be in a take what we would get category. We might create the sentence off of that. But if they came back and said, hey, no, we'll do 3.7 and yeah, we want more, then we might be like, well, hey, well then let's go for a growth instead of a, but we went down the same rabbit hole because I went thinking it was the sentence on the ballot, and we're just trying to gauge what the community would want to see on the ballot. If that kind of summarizes where we got.
And I think we encapsulated some of that too. The number, the 3.75 number, the top one, is saying, okay, if we know that we need 3 million to bust even, then next year we need 3.5, and then we need 4, and then we need 4.5. That average, if you spread it out equally, that's where the 3.75 number comes from, and that's why it's on there.
Oh, yeah, that's
So.
No, I understand that. I was just wondering if if we're gauging, do we wanna gauge that we come back and say 60% say that we want the lowest number. I'm just afraid people say, okay, I wanna do it, but I'm just gonna do the lowest number. And then here we sit, we're still cutting $2 million in 4 years. I mean, I guess that's where I'm coming from on it.
No, I 100% understand. I think that was one of the discussions we had at the committee too, is that there was it's basically like asking, do you want a no vote? And then where do you start from? Do you start from where you're at, or do you start from more where you're at? And I guess we were all kind of too timid to start from more where we're at on a survey, not necessarily the question on the ballot.
Okay.
Bill, did you have anything to add on that particular topic?
No, it's a great discussion, and I think the one thing I would add, if for board members that were around, what was it, 4 years ago, this is a very similar strategy to what we used, where there was, I don't know if it's a good, better, best, but there was one option that would require some cuts, there was one that allow us to kind of maintain status quo, and there was one that would increase, and we did add up and came out and people said, let's kind of maintain, so they picked the middle option. But what this does, what this strategy does, it empowers the respondent to say, you know, I want you to make some cuts. I think that's what you should do. Well, if the majority of your community wants you to do that, then as a board, you know, even if you don't want to do it, you probably have to do it. So I think this is probably the right strategy. You know, that you can always debate it if it's exactly the right numbers, but it feels about right to me, and it will allow the respondent to weigh in and not be, I always make a joke, I used to joke about a survey question, how much of a raise should we give the superintendent, 20%, 25, or 30%? You know, nobody wants that question. Sorry, John. But in the same way, this gives people options. You know, you should have to cut some. Well, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's try to, we're happy where we're at. Let's maintain. That would be our option too, or whatever. So I think those are pretty fair questions.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
One question I had is, okay, that's a survey people don't read, and this just came to me. Would it be worthwhile to put option 1 as cut, option 2 maintain, option 3 grow? You know, like those kind of those key words in a different color, or just something along the lines for the people who take surveys and don't always read the full sentence, the speed readers. Because that's in essence what each option is. A cut option, a growth option. I don't know if that's been done or if that has value, but I just threw it out there.
The thing that's a little bit tricky is back to the original point of what exactly is our budget shortfall, and then therefore is option 1 a cut, a significant cut?
I see.
And is option truly a maintain? No, it actually, then it's maintain from what baseline? You know, so it would become a little, you could be criticized for being subjective there, I think.
Kind of set,
I like it, but.
set you up for down the road. We could be scrutinized for what, if it really was a cut or not.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anything else on the options? Be good in concept. We will work on quantifying the projected shortfall, or potentially not quantifying it. That's another option, but we do need to quantify these and corresponding tax impacts, which we did. And then the 4th page of the survey is obviously nothing we want to do. We call it cost-cutting options, but this is data that the board may need if voters do not support an operational referendum. The district will need to make significant cuts to balance the budget. While the district does not endorse any of the following, we must consider all options. So one option that all school districts face is, and really the money that you're spending primarily goes into staff. And if you don't have the money, you have to cut staff. If you cut staff, your class sizes will increase. So that would be a option. Should we consider cutting teachers and increasing class sizes? Yes or no? Another way you save money is you cut course offerings. Those are typically not the mandated or required courses. Obviously, it would be your elective AP and college courses offered to students. Should we consider reducing those to save money? Yes or no? Athletic and co-curricular offerings. That's another area. Oh, but by the way, there's not that much money in relative terms. You're never going to close a $2 or $3 million shortfall by cutting football. But what we're doing there is we're saying everything's on the table. We're open to feedback. So we asked that question in terms of reducing athletic and co-curricular offerings. And the other area would be not teachers in the classrooms, but the staff that supports what's going on in the classroom, specifically the professional support, social workers, instructional coaches, and other professional support staff. Should we cut those folks? Yes or no? And then we left a open-ended, are there other cost-cutting measures the district should consider? If so, what are they? And we've got a free response area, and people can tell you what they think you should do. Our experience, hopefully you don't need this, but it is important to put people on notice that this is where you're gonna have to look if in fact there is not support for.
I'm going to show you an electrolysis of water. Apparatus. I'm going to take this little test tube here. I'm going to dip it under.
Happened to everyone. It's not just this is not a big deal.
We're doing a science lesson. It's over, we're good.
Push the wrong button there.
So I didn't hear all that, but so that's the end of the survey. It's a very simple 4-page
We learned a
survey.
lot.
It's gonna give you, I think, some pretty clear data on is there any support for a referendum, and if so, what amount? And as John said earlier, the data does end up being very, very predictive. It might not be what you want, but it's predictive, so you will know how your taxpayers feel.
Any other clarifying questions? Chad?
Just on your cost-cutting options with the class sizes.
There, I'm going to zoom in so we can see that up close.
We got it.
That's what you're watching over there.
I got an email from a student and it embedded the video to a hydrogen experiment.
With the class sizes, with the option, would it help to put where we average, what the average schools are around us? So I think we're already pretty high compared to average, so that people see it.
Yeah, our strategic plan and in following that, especially with our K-3 numbers, are in a good place right now.
Or K-3, but I mean, I think our high school, or 4 through 12, I think we're pretty high.
We're right where Auden wants us, at least for the strategic plan. I don't know, Bill, what are your thoughts? That's a fair question regarding comparing us to other districts. Is that something we want to do?
But if you were to do that, you might put that into an FAQ that you would put on your website, you know, which is, how do our class sizes compare, you know, the rhetorical question, then you would answer it. I probably wouldn't put it into the survey because it's going down to the next level, and then if you do that, then one could argue, well, how do we compare with our electives? How do we compare with our AP? How do we compare with our, you know, athletic and co-curricular spending? So it kind of takes you down the next level of detail that isn't, you know, it's fair to ask, but it's probably would push us to an 8-page survey, not a 4-page survey.
Right. That would be good for frequently asked questions, Chad, so I'll be sure to add that in there.
Anyone else questions for Bill or Eddie? Dr. Sample? There's no other feedback, I believe. We'll be looking for a motion. Otherwise, some more input or discussion.
Hey, I got one question quickly here.
Go ahead,
As I'm looking
Linda.
this over. Sorry about that. But it's saying that, like, if you want additional surveys for other adults in your household, are we assuming there's more than one family living in a household? Because you really don't, you just truly would think there's just one.
Yeah, so what that would be if you were married and your spouse feels very passionate either in the same way or.
So you want, okay. I just didn't know, I thought maybe your household would just take one survey, not like, you know, multiple, like your husband and wife take the survey type thing?
For voters.
Okay.
Because they'll each go
For
to
each
the
voter,
poll.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm just wondering, because normally I was gonna say just one person in my household would be the one person filling that survey out. It wouldn't be like a husband, wife fill each other's surveys, I guess, so that's all I was wondering.
No, good question.
Thank you.
I have one question yet about the online. That would be more for John. Are you worried with what we just happened with the busing? And now people responding?
Sure. We don't like for those things to happen. I think by the time April rolls around, hopefully it will be a distant memory.
No. What I meant is that our problem with, some of our problem with our busing is people didn't do the online registering.
Gotcha. No.
Are
in
we
fact,
worried with this?
Because of the transportation, we have more parents than ever who have completed that process.
Okay.
And so we do have a lot of
But that, I
information.
was just, because I know when we sat here, we were all worried, you know, how are we gonna get fixed that part? Now here we're going to strictly online.
Yeah, and Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the status
paper
on.
two. This
We're gonna do
Well, you gotta
paper, we're
request
gonna
paper.
go electronically, but we've already submitted the electronic names and
Yes.
email addresses to.
We've got, I believe, all the student, family, staff, or, sorry, the student and family side, I know where you emailed out to you guys, Bill. I don't know if we've sent the staff side yet, but if we haven't, it's coming very soon.
Yeah, so, and actually, everybody will receive a paper copy in their mailbox, so this will get mailed out to every community member in snail mail and paper, so they will get it, they will be able to touch and feel it, so those folks that don't have internet or don't like computers will be able to take the survey, and then they have a choice, online, or they can return the paper. So every household will get one, and then if they'd like to request an additional survey, then they can do that as well.
That's a cute thought, yeah.
Well, it will work one time. So whether you mail it in or you do it online, that code only will work one time.
Ah.
Any other follow-up questions? Boy, I said be looking for the potential motion on the. Go ahead.
I'll recommend a motion to approve the draft survey with edits as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion from John, a second by Maria. Any additional discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep, see you later.
Next item on our agenda this evening is the Friends of the Forest proposal for additional staffing. We had attached a topic summary sheet from Dr. Sample and Edward Then, a recommended motion from our Finance HR Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Maria?
Move to approve a full-time aide for the school forest to be paid as a 50-50 split with the Friends of the School Forest, and to authorize the attached memorandum of understanding effective for the 2021-2022 school year and until terminated by the board.
Motion by Maria.
I'll
We have
second.
Second by Kendra.
Sorry, Ron.
Any discussion or questions on the motion or this particular topic? Seeing no hands raised, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda is a resolution authorizing temporary borrowing in an amount not to exceed $6,400,000, issuance of taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory notes, and participation in the PMA levy and aid anticipation notes program with an attached topic summary sheet from Eddie Then. We do have a recommendation for a motion from the Finance HR Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? John?
I move to approve the resolution authorizing temporary borrowing in an amount not to exceed 6.4 million, issuance of taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory notes, and the participation in the PMA levy and aid anticipation notes plan program, approving Edward Then as the acting fiscal agent for MAPS regarding signatures required on the day of the offering and other documentation relating to this borrowing.
Motion by John. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ron. Any discussion or questions on the motion or topic? Hearing none. Tammy, could we have a roll call on this, please?
Brett Waller,
Aye.
Linda Yingling,
Aye.
Nubs Ashbeck,
Aye.
Chad Krieger,
Aye.
Ron Liberty,
Aye.
Kendra Osnes,
Aye.
John Smith,
Aye.
Maria Volpe,
Aye.
Kevin Blake.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously on a roll call vote. Next item on our agenda is technical corrections to policies via Neola's Volume 30, Number 2 update. Per our bylaw 0131.1, the superintendent is authorized to review and make technical corrections to policies that have already been adopted through formal rulemaking procedure. Superintendent shall inform the board of any such changes at the next regular board meeting, such as this evening. We were provided with some updates of those technical corrections. This is where he's notifying us of those. Next on our agenda is the facility and transportation updates with a topic summary sheet from Dr. Sample and Dale Bergman. I'll turn it over to Dr. Sample for an update.
From the time of completing this topic summary, that information is fairly old now, and I think everybody here has gotten has received up-to-date information regarding our transportation. That was the bulk of this facility and transportation update. We will continue to keep you updated with facilities or with transportation until everything has been completely resolved. I can say from a facility standpoint, teachers are in their classes, their classrooms look great. The consolidation from a building level was certainly completed by now. It had to be by September 1. Everybody did a fantastic job to make that happen, and the facilities now update in the future will revolve around what, if anything, is taking place at Jefferson. That will not happen until after our next board admin retreat, which will be on September 28th. And so we can talk about facilities. I will continue to use this as an update, even though the consolidation has been complete. There's going to be other things that we'll need to talk about. And so I would look later at a future committee meeting to see if we can perhaps make a modification to this to talk about something such as referendum updates, those types of things that are a little bit more relevant than the building consolidation at this point. So, but for the time being, I will continue to use this standing agenda item at each committee and board meeting.
One of the things that we've talked about that will roll into this for future committee meetings and discussion would be that of extra and co-curricular activities and how that's affected by having one busing service and timing of events that they're working with the activities department, having to get routes done on a certain time and having X number of drivers and buses available to meet these. And sometimes we've extended multiple buses for activities, or maybe that can be consolidated in some efficiencies. So I've asked at the next committee level meetings for this topic to be brought up, and for Dale and Dr. Sample to provide that information from the high school and middle school activities. So you're aware that that's already being worked on. Anything else to highlight on that? Otherwise, I think we've gone through that. All right, at this point, we would have our consent agenda, so I'd ask if anyone would want anything pulled from our consent agenda this evening. And if not, I would ask for a motion. Kendra?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D, which includes minutes of the August 18th, 2021 meeting, claims, vouchers, and receipts totaling $1,865,792.88. The personnel report as presented, contingent upon the satisfaction of the appropriate liquidated damages for resignations, if applicable, and donations totaling $50.
Second.
Motion by Kendra, second by Maria. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Mr. Smith, have an abstention from the 18th meeting?
Oh, I happen to have, I'll abstain from the minutes of the 18th meeting.
That would be wonderful, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Motion carries as noted. Items for future meetings, the one that I had mentioned was based on transportation and activity co-curricular, extracurricular activities. Does anyone have any additional things that have not been conveyed to committee chairs or to myself or Dr. Sample? Otherwise, certainly feel free to reach out on those. I know we've been cleaning up that list the best we can. And look forward to working with everybody to do that going forward also. Just a friendly reminder, tomorrow morning is our regular scheduled radio broadcast at about 8:15 a.m. on Blue Jay 730 radio. We highlight the start of the school year and tonight's board meeting, so we will go through that. Future meetings that we would reference there as well. The annual meeting and budget hearing is scheduled for Monday, September 20th at 5:30 p.m. at the high school auditorium. We do have a special board meeting, which is a board admin retreat on Tuesday, September 28th at 5 p.m. at Jefferson. We have a policy committee meeting for Wednesday, September 29th at 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Special facilities committee meeting for Wednesday, October 6th at 3:30 p.m. in the boardroom, followed immediately by Finance HR Committee at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 6th. CTP, or Curriculum Technology Pupil Services Committee, meets next at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 13th. And our next regularly scheduled board meeting here in the boardroom will be Wednesday, October 27th, convening at 5:30 p.m. Next on our agenda, we had posted for the opportunity for a contemplated motion to adjourn into executive closed session. At this time, we have not received any documents from our legal team or from the Athens School District, so it is not necessary to ask for that contemplated motion. Instead, I would ask someone to move for adjournments.
So moved.
Moved by Maria, second by Nubbs. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Our meeting is adjourned at 7:37 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance.